Hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with another episode of Breaking Out. Today we're going to be taking a look at Team Extraterrestrial's JowJ playing his Zerg versus Protoss matchup. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players. Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of Belshare Vestige, the latter edition, it is going to be the red Protoss player from Team MYI. It is MYI's Chef. Spelt with a CH and a CE. Not exactly the most typical kind of chef, but you know that you can trust this kind of guy to cook exactly what you're looking for. He does the kind of underdog shady stuff that, I don't know, if you really want something really weird in your food, I guess you can ask this guy to do it. But of course, we're going to have to see what he can cook up against the player in the bottom right hand corner from Team Extraterrestrials is going to be the blue Zerg player, the 22-year-old American Zerg player from Texas. It is Extraterrestrials' JowJ. And JowJ actually sending out a pretty early drone scout, as well as an overlord, and this is really indicative that he's kind of concerned about a potential cheese going on right now. I mean, that drone definitely came out pretty early. You can see that the Overlord pathing is also going straight over potential proxy positions, such as over here, such as maybe over here and whatnot. But of course, this probe is going to be moving along this side. Of course, JowJ going to go ahead and take that natural expansion. Probe moving at a relatively normal time, nothing too crazy going on, but the craziest thing that is going on is the fact that there is this gateway expansion probably going to be coming down, and a double gas geyser being thrown down as well. But this gateway wall, and not something that you see actually too often. Normally when a Protoss player does decide to go for this kind of gateway expansion, they end up throwing down the gateway and the pylon closer to the nexus. That allows the photon overcharge to actually defend the buildings as well, whereas this pylon could be a bit vulnerable later on if he is not careful to some of that Zergling aggression. But in the meanwhile, JowJ just going for the crazy shenanigans right now. Going to be going for that hatchery over at his opponent's natural expansion. Normally you'd use those 300 minerals and take your third expansion, but we'll have to see. Is this going to cost him? There's no spawning pool down just quite yet, and that does mean that, you know, especially with the gas guys are going down, this is a very interesting play from JowJ, and we end up seeing the Zealot come out. He's going to be able to delay his opponent's natural expansion for quite a while, but at the same time, his opponent is going for a gateway expansion, so I'm actually questioning whether this is going to end up being worth it or not. It really does depend on how long this single Zealot is going to actually be able to have to whack away at that hatchery. And of course, a second Zealot is going to be popping out. That's definitely going to be able to clean this up. Does JowJ actually cancel this? I'm not too sure. It's getting pretty low on health, and I feel like he's definitely going to have to cancel it to really make use of that hatchery block. But in the meanwhile, we do finally have that spawning pool coming up. Gas has started mining for quite a bit, so he's going to have enough gas to actually start Zergling speed pretty much as soon as the spawning pool finishes up. But how exactly is his opponent, Chef, going to transition out of this? Of course, the hatchery getting very close to finishing up. And look at the timing on that. The hatchery was about to finish up right around the time that two Zealots would have been able to kill it off. So really well timed from JowJ. I imagine that he's actually done this build quite a bit before. And now we finally see Chef starting to put some more probes on the gas, at least putting one more probe on one of the gas geysers. We'll have to see when he decides to put the last probe on that second gas geyser. But of course, he can get out that much, of course, try and defend this natural expansion for just a little bit. In the meanwhile, JowJ actually going to be playing a little bit more defensively, going for a spine crawler, which does mean that he's going to be committing a bit more to the defense. And in the meanwhile, I expect him to be droning quite heavily behind it, maybe get a handful of Zerglings just to do a little bit of scouting information, preparing for any kind of maybe Zergling aggression that could be coming, or sorry, Zealot aggression that could come out. But all in all, I expect a pretty macro heavy style after this, and probably going to be taking a third expansion sometime in the next 30 or 45 seconds, unless he decides to do something absolutely crazy. But look at this, JowJ coming in with the Overlord, is going to scout out these two gateways, sees, hey, nothing too crazy about that, is going to come in over here straight through the main base and says, hey, okay, you're taking those two gas geysers, that's cool, and no tech has quite gone down just yet, so he knows, hey, I'm not up against some kind of one gateway robotics facility play. I'm not up against any kind of crazy +1 or +2 blink all in. That normally does come down for the forward fast expand, but wow, Chef actually really going after that drone. The drone was trying to make that third expansion, but the time warp going down and actually manages to use that as an opportunity to pick it off. A really nice play from MYI Chef. Chef is going to have to be careful. This probe is spotted out, and of course this pylon is going to be picked off as well. JowJ, similar to his ZVT, actually just maintaining ridiculously good map vision. I mean, we can see he sees control of those Zelnaga watchtowers, has Overlord spread out really, really nicely, and just keeping Zerglings to fill in the gaps as well. It's something that I think is really underrated and not really done enough, but this Mothership Core might have to return home to defend with all of these Zerglings out on the map right now. I mean, he's going to be able to do a lot of damage, a nice little whittling away at that third expansion, but I've assumed that a queen will eventually be able to pop in over here, but look at the sentry count. I don't think that JowJ is actually going to be able to break this, so this Mothership Core might actually be okay until the queen starts whittling away at it, because, you know, between a queen and a Mothership Core, the queen just barely wins out. And, you know, with that being said, JowJ is going to be able to defend that third expansion. Going to be able to get up a couple of extra gas geysers. Needs to start that lair tech. I have to say, that is something that JowJ has heavily delayed in this game. We're already sitting at the 8-minute mark. And only just now is that lair tech going to be going up, as well as the fact that, I mean, that third expansion pretty heavily delayed. Delayed a little bit further than he actually wanted to, just because of that Mothership Core. But look at this. JowJ using those Zergling run-bys. We heard him say it in the interview. He believed that ZvP was a very positional game. And, you know, this is about as positional as you can get. Make sure that you hold position your Zealot over at that choke, or you're going to have a ton of Zerglings running in, depowering your Cybernetics Core, depowering your one of your Warp Gates, and potentially might even be able to depower that Forge. But no, it does look like he's going to have to run away. All those sentries could end up throwing down some force fields to protect that Forge, but now we end up seeing these Zerglings just being so annoying. Some really great damage is being done. So far, it looks like 3 or so probes have gone down, and you might actually be able to, well, at least he gets a scout off on the Twilight Council. Isn't going to be able to pick it off. Chef is going to be able to chase these Zerglings out eventually. Finally, they do get cleaned up, but not before some very vital scouting information was done. We can see, hey, +1 weapons going down, Twilight Council going down. Twilight Council probably going to be for that +2 weapons upgrade eventually. But JowJ should know, hey, you know what, my opponent's probably just kind of teching up a little bit. Should be okay. And of course, the Hallucinating Phoenix is going to be scouting out that Hydralisk Den. A bit of an interesting decision, considering we did end up hearing JowJ say, you know what, he really feels like it wins a lot of his games by going Mutalist. But of course, he also mentioned that he felt ZvP was all about positional play and tech switching. So would likely see, or be expecting to see, him go for a lot of those tech switches a bit later on. Now look at this speedy Overseer. It's on like a freaking racetrack, man. This guy has the nitro on right now, zooming past his third expansion, going to be scouting that out, sees the gateway, sees the cannons, should know exactly how many Zerglings he has to send over there if he wants to later on to actually try and do some damage over there. And we do end up seeing a lot of these Zerglings kind of grouping up along the same little attack path. But I have to say, the MYI Chef doing a great job just constantly scouting out his opponent, and probably actually did end up having the opportunity to see these Zerglings. So you can see he's kind of positioned his army in between his natural expansion and his third base, going to be trying to get ready to defend it. Will he be able to do so? He has to make sure that the force fields are really well timed. And look at that. I love that Zealot is actually out there scouting. The force fields do not manage to trap any of those Zerglings out, though. JowJ managed to pull those back in time. And look at this. Chef doing the great control of the Zelnaga Tower. These Zerglings really can't contest that Zelnaga Tower with the Mothership Core there. So even though they'll be able to pick off that Zealot, they're not going to really be able to control it for too long unless he wants to start losing some of those Zerglings. Now, in the meanwhile, we do take a look at the tech choice of Chef, and it looks like MYS Chef going for that Twilight Council, going straight into Psionic Storm with those High Templars, and it can be very effective against Hydralisk. It can be. Sometimes, though, it will not be as effective as you would like it to. Yeah, Hydralisk will take a lot of damage. They still move kind of slow unless they're on creep, or unless they also have that research that will actually speed them up as well. And it looks like that research has been done. But still, they can take a lot of damage. But they can also move off of the actual Psionic Storms at a decent pace because they have that speed upgrade. So Psionic Storm's going to be a decent choice from Chef. We'll have to see how it ends up turning out. It looks like he actually might be morphing the Archons. No, just kind of grouping them up and going to be doing a little bit of damage with this Warp Prism. Not opting to warp anything in just quite yet. JowJ not entirely aware of this yet either, although he does have some Zerglings positioned in. He might have actually seen that Warp Prism move in, but he has not positioned his army in order to deal with it. Now, for the meanwhile, this Warp Prism going to go uncontested as it does decide to warp in. Now, warp in to Zealots is going to be a very, very effective means to actually do a little bit of harassment damage, but the Queen should be able to delay a little bit of that harassment, and JowJ does eventually notice this. Going to be able to just be pulling over those Queens, and this Overseer going to be getting a nice scout off on that Immortal. Of course, he's going to actually end up having to pull his entire army back. Roaches going to be coming in, and oh no, the Spire under fire right now. It's very, very low on health. Is it going to get sniped? And it looks like it does end up getting sniped. A very, very devastating loss for JowJ, but he does end up cleaning up those Zealots. The Warp Prism survives though, and he is going to be able to live the tail and continue to harass his Zerg opponent. JowJ definitely going to be in a very uncomfortable position after that. Going to have to restart that Spire. He was likely looking to, you know, build up that bank. You can already see 1,200 minerals, 1,000 gas, sitting at about 30 a supply away from max out, but probably doesn't want to max out. He probably wants to look for that trade. He wants to go for that engagement in relatively favorable terms, but still, he just wanted to get an engagement. But now he has to be a bit more careful. He does not have that Spire to rely on for that big tech transition, so now he's just going to go for the counterattack, try and buy himself some time, and there we end up seeing the Zerglings moving straight in over here. They're going to be able to go in, try and get the run by in, but it looks like a Zealot warp in from MYI Chef going to be very, very effective. Some storms going down, but Extraterrestrials, JowJ on top of it and backing out over there, but now he's going to have to back out of here entirely. I'm actually not sure if JowJ was actually able to do the damage that he wanted to get done. And look at this. This Immortal is like the most badass Immortal over here. He's just sitting there, just position blocking a lot of those Hydros, and oh my god, the force fields going down from the Sentry. Such a smart play from MYI Chef, trapping in all of these Hydros, a flanking Sentry, not something that you see every day. And now JowJ is going to be on the back foot. He has to figure out some way to defend, but he has had that bank build up. He very, very wisely did not spend a lot of that money earlier on to get up the bigger army. He had the supply available to build a bigger army, but he decided not to. He's now just building a massive number of 17, going up to 19 Mutalisks. And yes, he's going to be trading this expansion, but these Spine Crawlers are going to be able to buy some time. And even though the Immortal is going to be doing a lot of damage, guess what do not shoot up against a Mutalisk? Immortals. What is this army full of? Immortals. The big defense over here is going to be these High Templars as well as the Archon. Of course, Guardian Shield also going to be a very, very critical part, but they are so far out of position. The Mothership Core is not over here to actually recall anything, so now he's going to have to basically try and defend with whatever units he can warp in, but against this many Mutals, it's going to be so difficult. This is turning into a base trade, and unfortunately for the Protoss player, look at how many Spine Crawlers are actually over here. Yeah, there are a lot of Immortals over here, but is it going to be enough? There's not enough units tanking the damage in front of him. The Mutalisk depowering a lot of these pylons, and as soon as all these pylons are depowered or depowering the gateways, that means that no more Warpins are going to be coming in. Look at all of these Stargates, so are they going to be able to come out in time? We have 4 Phoenix building at a time. Is it going to be enough? Archon's managing to chase back JowJ, and JowJ's going to have to just take out some of these some more of these pylons. Has he bought enough time with all these Spine Crawlers? He's building even more Spine Crawlers. He knows that this is turning into a complete base trade. If he can just stop this push from coming in, he will be able to take this game. These High Templars are going to be completely useless against the Spine Crawlers, but the Immortals, again, doing so much damage on +2 weapon upgrades against the just +1 Carapace upgrade Zerglings that are really not going to be winning the base trade. A single Warp Gate, I think, remaining over here, but some more pylons going up. They are going to start to slowly repower these gateways. And it looks like Chef taking a bit of an advantage finally in this game, but the Mutalisks are coming back. How good are the storms going to be? Those are pretty good storms, but the Mutalisks chasing back and managed to take out all of those High Templar. Now we only have a single Stalker easily taken out. The Immortal is going to be taken out as well, and with that, we end up seeing the entire standing army of the Protoss player taken out, except for these Phoenixes. But these Phoenixes going to be a very, very devastating force for these Mutalisks to actually try and deal with it. How will JowJ actually deal with that? He does still have 26 drones able to mine. He could actually try and go and retake some of those expansions, but in the meanwhile, he's just going to be cleaning up some of these other bases. Right now, he knows that his Protoss opponent barely actually mining right now, basically on a relatively similar level of mining as his opponent. But we do end up seeing these Archons over here going to be chasing down these Mutals. The Mutals going after the pylons, but now we end up seeing the Phoenix that were looking for those Mutals early on are going to be retreating back. If he can actually corner these Mutals, he's going to be able to do an absurd amount of damage. These Mutals are not going to stand a chance against those Phoenix. But look at this. Oh, look at those jukes. Look at those jukes. Those Phoenix got completely juked out. But is it going to be enough? The Phoenix are starting to catch up. Those Phoenix move a little bit faster than their Mutals counterparts. So they will eventually be able to catch up and start to whittle away at those Mutals. But with some nice micro, you can actually turn around, try and do a little bit of damage, cut down on the Phoenix amount of kiting that they can actually do. And it looks like JowJ doing a pretty decent job, actually managed to pick off a couple of Phoenix here and there, and Chef making a couple of mistakes over there, sticking in there a little bit too long. It's very, very difficult actually, still, without the Phoenix range upgrade, to actually micro against a lot of those Mutals. And now we end up seeing JowJ kind of evening it up a little bit. There aren't that many Phoenix left over here, and you have to remember, Chef cannot afford to really reproduce a lot of these Phoenix. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a gas bank, but he's still trying to reestablish his natural expansion. He's basically going to be mined out of his main base for gas very, very soon. Meanwhile, JowJ not really even bothering to try and retake this expansion. He doesn't have 300 minerals left. It looks like he's actually just now going to be sending this drone over here to try and retake that third expansion. I like that idea a little bit more as well. And oh my god, he's going to get a free warp prism in the meanwhile. The observer does scout this all out, but I mean, JowJ has observers of his own. They're called creep tumors, and he is pretty magnificent at spreading it right now. But Phoenix still going to be reigning a little bit supreme over in this side of the map in the air battle, which is the most important battle right now because there are not a lot of ground units besides these Zerglings. And these Zerglings had to be careful because those are +2 Archons, man. Those +2 Archons will rip those Zerglings to shred. JowJ's going to have to back out for now, but this is becoming a very, very close game. And I do want to remind people that JowJ is not entirely against submitting replays where he has lost, and I think that he's played pretty fantastically in this game, and it's really, really close. I don't actually know who's going to win, but it looks like Phoenixes are starting to fall. We do have to see, is MYI Chef going to be able to out micro his opponent, or is JowJ going to be able to mind game his opponent through this? He's actually building spine crows and burrowing them further out onto the creep. He's going to be able to defend this third expansion with those spore crawlers. Sorry, I said spine crawlers, but meant spore crawlers. And with that being said, these Mutals will start to regenerate some of that health. So as long as he doesn't actually lose the Mutals to these Phoenix, he's still going to be in a decent position. But look at this. We can see Chef's production on those Phoenix has completely cut out. But here's the important thing. Where is it? We have the Fleet Bacon making that their upgrade over there for those Phoenix. That is going to be the +2 range upgrade for the Phoenix. That's going to make it much, much easier to kite those Mutals, and it's going to make those Mutals honestly a little bit worthless. But JowJ, knowing this, has started to transition back out over into Hydrals. How well is this going to work out? We'll have to find out, as it looks like a handful of these Mutals are left over. We have 11 Mutals to 5 Phoenix. More than enough Phoenix with some good micro to actually kite these Mutals out once they have that range upgrade, and it looks like the range upgrade has finished up, so they're going out in search of it. But thanks to JowJ's creep tumor spread, he does know exactly where those Phoenix are, so that is one little advantage that JowJ has going for him. The Hydrals count is not high enough, honestly, to just solo these Phoenix, so he has to be a little bit careful. He has to engage these with the Mutalists, and the Mutals are going to be able to pick off one of the Phoenix. Another Phoenix taking some substantial damage. Two of the Phoenix actually very, very low in health in the red. Could die in just a single or one or two Mutalist shots, so he has to be very, very careful with that. And these Hydralists are starting to build up in the count. He has 4 more on the way, and he's actually started to reestablish the mining expansion over here at the the third expansion. In the meanwhile, Chef is mining over there at that natural expansion, but is it going to be enough? These Phoenix starting to dwindle heavily in numbers. The Archon's really going to have to be the big key unit that comes into play over here, as they're going to be dealing with both Hydralists and Mutalists. Both of these have very, very little health, but will both deal a decent amount of damage. The Mutals obviously going to reign supreme in the air if those Phoenix are taken out. But the Hydrals going to be dealing a lot of damage to those Archons. Will they be able to get into a good position? We end up seeing pretty good positioning over here from JowJ. Actually, these Hydrals get into a good position to actually deal with those Archons. And in the meanwhile, it looks like JowJ going to just be backing out. He's done a little bit of damage, managed to pick off another one of those Phoenix, and is just going to have to be careful not to lose too many more of those Mutals. Just trying to delay this third expansion from going up, because right now he's basically going to be in a little bit better of a position as long as he can actually delay long enough for this natural expansion to mine out. And he is building up that Hydrals count, man. He is building it up heavily. And in the meanwhile, Chef not really able to build up a lot of units outside of just Archons. Archons going to be very effective with +2 weapons. You can see that some of these Archons are getting up to 10 kills, and they will be getting quite a few more, I assure you, especially in that big engagement. But they still have to be careful because those Hydrals will start to rip apart the shields of those Archons, because those Archons don't have any armor on those shields. If they're sitting at +0 shield armor, and they don't start with any. And now they're going to be up against a handful of Roaches. The Roaches are going to be able to take the damage from the Archons, but Psionic Storm is going down. The Phoenixes are actually lifting up quite a few of those Hydrals. Where in the world are the Mutals at? The Mutals are actually going after over at the 3rd expansion. But look at this. The Hydralists with the Roaches able to take out all of those Archons. A handful of Zealots going to be warped in, and this lone High Templar unable to do anything. GG gets called out, and MYI Chef falls to Extraterrestrials JowJ in a very, very close 28-minute game that went into a semi-base trade, reduced back down to one economy and one base economy, and eventually JowJ was able to take the advantage. So really well done by both of these players, and I'm so glad that we actually got to take a look at JowJ ZvP. We saw some really great Mutals play. We saw some good transitions from the Hydralist tech, and then trying to catch your opponent off guard, using those Mutals to try and pick off some of those Immortals. But of course, MYS Chef, no slash himself, getting up a ton of these Stargates in response, getting up the Phoenix count that needed to deal with the Mutals for the most part, but the tech switch back to the Hydrals, really winning JowJ the game. And of course, creep spread did not hurt too much. I mean, he only had a little bit of creep spread. I mean, this isn't that much creep spread, I guess, right? I mean, you're only sitting right outside of your opponent's 3rd expansion and your opponent's natural expansion. So really well done. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that. So with that being said, we've covered all 3 of Extraterrestrial JowJ's matchups. So if you have not seen some of those other games, I highly recommend you go ahead and check those out over at youtube.com/FearDragon64. But in the meanwhile, I hope that you decide to tune in tomorrow. That's going to be Friday for the final game, and we don't know actually what matchup that's going to be. JowJ just handpicked a game that he felt was just a really awesome game. I'm actually surprised this wasn't the awesome game, because it was pretty freaking awesome. But he has handpicked a game that he just thought was a really fun game to watch. So we're going to check that out tomorrow and follow it up with that final day where on Saturday we're just going to have a little bit of fun, kick it back, maybe do some karaoke or dancing or something crazy. Maybe I'll rent some Tonka trucks for him to drive around in. We'll only have to find out as the time comes. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of Breaking Out. I hope to see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/FearDragon64. Take care, guys.